Welcome to Open Space. I'm Thomas Herrmann and I'm today in Stockholm where I'm facilitating a follow-up meeting which is 4 or 5 months after an Open Space technology meeting that we had in November last year. So this is a private training institute which has hired me for this process, and we have prepared in this room for this follow-up meeting. And in the follow-up meeting we have the first part, which is impact evaluation, looking back what has actually happened since the open space, and then we have the next part, which is the mini open space. How do we move on from here? So I can show you a little bit here on the wall. On the wall here we have 4 different stations which we will use in the impact evaluation, where people get reminded a little bit about what have we achieved together. So one of the stations over there is about the theme of the open space that we facilitated together, and the givens that were around it. There were some values, a vision and a business idea, which is kind of the starting point for them. We also worked out some basics around the process that will continue after the open space. And the theme of the open space was about how can we do the personal meeting as our strength in our organization. So that's one station that we will use in impact evaluation. Here's a station which is the whole process that we've gone through, from the planning meetings, the open space, which resulted in 18 reports and 11 action plans, with teams working with action plans. After the open space, we had first follow-up meetings with the managers a few days later, and then another follow-up meeting with some of the managers and the conveners of action plans together. So we met them together to see are there any groups that want to merge together, and how do we move this work on now together. So all these parts of the process are participative processes, facilitated either using open space or other co-creative methods, like whole person process facilitation is my other favorite method. So after the first follow-up meetings, we also had a half-day training for the facilitators of action plans. So they had some input on how they can facilitate their groups in an online environment, because this organization of 100 people is spread all over Sweden. So they had some introductions about how they can work with co-creative, a nice way with the groups that they have formed. We also had 2 mentoring circles to support the conveners of action plans before we now today have our follow-up meeting here. So we're going to work here, as I said, first looking back, what has happened, what are the impacts that we can see from the work that we've done, and then in the afternoon we're going to have an open space technology meeting. And as I know you're curious about open space technology, so I can show you a little bit here what we have prepared. It's a bit complex meeting because we have an evaluation part in the morning and then an open space in the afternoon. I prepared the theme for the open space, which is, now we're here. How do we move on? That's kind of the next step that they're going to clarify here in the open space. And when we do an open space, we need to have a very clear theme, and also important is to have prepared where we do the agenda wall. So I will put papers and markers in the center of the circle and invite each participant here. Do you have any ideas for something that we can use to move on, or something we can do to move on from where we are now? Grab a paper, a marker, write your name and your topic and read it out so everyone can hear it. And then you go to this agenda wall, and here we have 2 columns of post-its representing the 2 time slots we have in this open space technology meeting, and they're numbered for the different breakout groups we have. So if you want to sit in group number 1, which is over there in the corner, you take this post-it, put it on your paper and put it on the wall. And that's how we organize this meeting. And then, as you may know, when we have the agenda clear, everybody just chooses where they want to take part in which of the topics that are in the first round. They just go to one of the breakouts, and you see over there on the wall we have the 4 principles which are introduced in open space as well, and we have the law of mobility as well. So people can also move around from different groups in the open space, and now the room looks a little bit different than a normal open space because we have all the other material here as well. But you see the law of mobility, the bumblebees and the butterflies over here. So those are really important parts as well in an open space technology meeting. And there's so much more to share, but I promised I will do a small video here to just share a little bit about open space technology. And I think it's also important with the whole process, as I described it here, to have really good preparations before, to be clear on the purpose and what you want to achieve with it, and then also have a planned follow-up process. So this is the second round for this organization where we do this quite elaborate process of open space technology, and we'll see how we move on from here. So thank you for being with me.